Hi, good afternoon to everybody. I'll give a brief recap of our introduction due to a brief audio issue. First, I'll provide an introduction on our presentation and the topics we'll be addressing. Then I'll present on our financial literacy games findings from our reports. My colleague, Eli Freierman, will take over for financial wellness assessments. We'll then discuss key takeaways from the presentation. And finally, we'll have a 15-minute Q&A at the end of the presentation. I'll also add that you'll be able to find links to the full reports from which our research is based, as well as overview and contact information for the team at the end of this presentation. Every attendee will also receive a recording of this webinar presentation, along with a copy of this presentation deck. My name is Madeline Gannon. I'm a research associate on retirement and workplace finance here at CI, and my colleague, Eli Freierman, a senior research associate on retirement and workplace finance, will be discussing these topics with you today. First, a brief note on corporate insights. CI has been providing actionable competitive intelligence and customer experience research to the nation's leading financial services, insurance, and healthcare firms. Our services include monitor research, experience benchmarks, consulting services, and user experience research. You can find more information about our services on our websites. And as I said before, there'll be contact information at the end of this presentation deck that you can use to contact our representatives and ask more specific questions about what we can offer to you and your team. Now for an introduction on our topic today. As low levels of financial literacy continue to negatively impact participant confidence and engagement levels, firms across the industry are adopting unique approaches to address the literacy gap. Within the participant site, financial wellness assessments are an increasingly essential tool to gauge participants' interests and pain points in order to provide content recommendations. Outside the retirement space, financial literacy games offer an innovative opportunity to build financial literacy at any age, allowing firms to make long-term investments in future retirement savers. I'll also add that this webinar will highlight findings from our recent reports on financial wellness assessments and financial literacy games, along with data from our dedicated user experience study of financial wellness assessments across the industry. As we go through this presentation, I'll ask that you keep in mind three core ideas. First, that low levels of financial literacy can negatively impact participant aptitude, confidence, and site engagement. Second, that financial literacy games offer the opportunity for expanded engagement and education. And finally, that financial wellness assessments allow firms to highlight site resources through personalized recommendations. Now I'll go ahead and highlight some key findings from our financial literacy games report. First, mobile and tablet apps present an opportunity for strong engagement. It's no secret that our mobile devices are part of our day-to-day lives. Everything from financial transactions to daily communication, we tend to handle our personal lives all on our mobile devices. Our recent survey on gamification preferences also supports that when it comes to having fun and playing games, users overwhelmingly prefer a mobile platform. Mobile devices also offer supreme convenience and opportunities for on-the-go nudges like push notifications and audio signals, allowing apps and firms to engage directly with users and jumping over that hurdle of trying to get a participant to sit down and log on to their desktop computer. One great example of an app that really leverages the opportunities offered by a mobile platform is the Money World app. Money World is one half a virtual piggy bank and one half a mobile game. Through Money World, participants open a unique bank account with Money World's partner bank and then set up a weekly deposit rate. As they go through the app, completing trivia questions and fun activities, participants can gain coins. At the end of a 4-week streak, that means if a user logs in every single day for 4 weeks, users have the option to convert their in-game coin currency to real cash that will then be deposited into their Money World accounts. What makes Money World exciting is that the weekly deposit amount, whether that's $10, $50, $200 each week, will set the exchange rate for in-game currency. So a $10 weekly deposit might give a 1 coin to 1 cent conversion rate. However, if you deposit over $200 or more, you might find that that conversion rate is far higher, earning the user more of a monetary reward and offering a tangible prize. Money World offers push notifications to provide hints and try and incentivize users on how they can gain more real cash rewards, as well as leveraging a very whimsical and colorful environment. You can see here in the screenshots that users have the option to engage with a virtual pet, design their own customizable persona, as well as explore the virtual Money World environment and hunt for coins and complete activities to really engage with the app. All of these features are here to incentivize daily login engagement, help users build up that 4-week streak in order for them to continue building savings. While Money World is not an education-forward app, it does educate users on the core principles of how to save and how to budget, and introduces them to some financial basics such as monitoring and being active with your personal finances. Another great example is Truist Long Game app. While no longer available at the time that it was on market, Truist Long Game offered a really exciting, very fun virtual world full of activities and quests and an overarching narrative that would incentivize users to learn about important financial basics, and similar to Money World, offered a connected bank account to help that allowed the firm to offer tangible monetary rewards for app engagement. Investmate takes a slightly different approach where it's an education-forward app. Users can use guided courses, access educational videos, and learn concrete lessons about how to invest for a beginner, as well as engage in a mock trading environment that's very colorful, a little cartoonish, and makes investing seem very accessible for individuals of any background or aptitude. I'll also add that our 2023 investor survey showed that clients expect a mobile experience and prefer it when it comes to trading and investing. So not only does Investmate offer some really great educational resources, but the app also prepares users in a platform that they prefer and a platform that they might transition very easily to when going from the practice app to a real investing app. Our final example for a mobile and tablet game is Fidelity's Pancake Empire Tower Tycoon, a bit of a mouthful. Pancake Empire is hosted on the Roblox platform, which is a massively popular online gaming platform with a 3D world that is free to play and is especially popular among children. Most users engage in Roblox through a tablet or mobile device, although it is available on a laptop or desktop. In Pancake Empire, users try and build, their pancake empire by completing activities in-game to earn an in-game currency called yum-yums, which they can then convert into quote-unquote cash within the game. Unlike our other examples, this is not real money that a user can deposit into an account, but rather a secondary form of in-game currency that allows users to both build their empire and also buy customization options for their avatar and for their virtual worlds. Fidelity does a great job of mixing education with fun by interdispersing financial lessons throughout the world. You can see in the bottom right image here, there's a banner, and this would exist within the 3D world itself, offering a short lesson on needs versus wants. The conversion rate from yum-yums to their secondary in-game currency also helps teach players about risk and return. And so this is all done in a very colorful, slightly cartoonish, a little bit youthful environment that might be really appealing to young children. At the same time, by being hosted on the Roblox platform, Fidelity is able to access an already established and very large user base. Next, through financial literacy games, we are also seeing a similar pattern that we're finding within the participant site of the evolution of what wellness means. Historically, wellness has been interpreted in a couple of different ways, sometimes as stress management, as Best Money Moves adopts for the approach, and sometimes as happiness, such as TIA does in their new tool, TIAA's Joy of Spending, where the firm uniquely positions budgeting as an act of spending more on what brings you joy rather than trying to cut expenses in order to save. We see the same approach in several financial literacy games within the coverage set. Bank of America's Financial Literacy Challenge offers a unique score for the player's quality of life. That means that as players make different decisions in the game, such as what apartment should they rent, should they go and do a certain activity, should they spend more money or less money on something that they might need, how will it impact their quality of life? Sometimes, in order to save your budget, you spend a little less, and that might detract from your overall score. At the end of the game, players are given a unique quality of life score that is incorporated into their overall game performance, and Bank of America also offers leaderboards to incentivize competition. So quality of life is very important in this game, and one that is directly connected to the player's quote-unquote happiness. Another great example of this is Fidelity's 5 Money Musts. 5 Money Musts is very similar to Bank of America's Financial Literacy Challenge, where players are asked to engage in a game of life style simulation, where they're making different financial decisions that strongly reflect real life decisions, such as where will I live, how much do I spend on groceries, and so on, except Fidelity takes a more explicit approach in designating a true happiness score. And players can monitor that with every decision as they go through the game there on their scoreboard to the right. And at the end of the game, rather than being a core part of their score, this is a bonus score. So what Fidelity is educating players on is that while your happiness may not be essential to your day-to-day financial health, it is nonetheless a valuable score and a valuable consideration. We also find within our offerings throughout the coverage set that firms take varying approaches to game style and tone. This makes financial literacy games well suited to applying to players of all ages rather than just for children. One really interesting example of this is Fidelity offers not just one, not just two, but 3 distinct literacy games within the coverage set, and they're one of the few firms that does offer this many unique games. In addition to Pancake Empire and 5 Money Musts, Fidelity also hosts a virtual reality campus within Metaverse's virtual reality and digital platform called Bloomorama. Here, players can create their own metaverse avatar, explore a fully realized 3D world if they're on a laptop or mobile device, or if they're using virtual reality, explore a slightly more immersive world. Another great example is that Visa launched the financial football game, which takes a slightly more sports-oriented approach that's a little bit less childish, but still very much designed as a game, taking notes from the style of Jeopardy, where players are asked to complete different trivia questions and advance their team. Interestingly, financial football offers a fully realized 3D visual of your team. So if you take a more difficult question to try and play a touchdown, if you answer it correctly, you'll see that entire touchdown play realized with 3D animated figures on a football field. This incentivizes a little bit of competition, makes it very fun for players who may be passionate about football, and also offers a satisfying reward that, while not monetary, still allows you to play and try and win a game. One of our most unique offerings in the coverage set is Urban Ministries of Durham's Spent. The Urban Ministries of Durham is a nonprofit based in North Carolina, and Spent takes a slightly different approach in using a very severe and a very dark game design and game language. What Spent tries to do is challenge players' preconceptions about who can experience a financial emergency, who can find themselves homeless, who can find themselves bankrupt. And the answer the game proposes is that it can happen to anybody. And that's why it's important to build core financial habits and maintain your financial literacy. The game takes a very assertive, even aggressive tone, challenging the player to, quote unquote, prove it in a challenge that they can last a month while on the verge of bankruptcy, and also challenges players to make sometimes very difficult decisions. For instance, if the player finds themselves nearing bankruptcy and can't afford to pay their bills, they may be given the option to literally smash their child's piggy bank for a whopping sum of $16.23. Not that much, a little bit of a uncomfortable decision to make, but nonetheless something that does adequately prove the point of, if you think that you're exempt from a financial emergency, you better think again. Finally, games offer a really great way to build an immersive environment for students. As I said before, low levels of financial literacy can negatively impact engagement and aptitude and confidence levels among participants. And the research shows that not only is this present among adults, but we're finding low levels of aptitude among both high school and college students. On this slide, what you're seeing is data from Corporate Insight's Financial Literacy Survey conducted in 2023, where we found that only 37% of high school students and 39% of college students answered more than half of the questions correctly on a financial aptitude test. So here the data shows that there is a demonstrated literacy gap, and one that is starting early. One way that games can offer immersive environments for students is by challenging players to take on the role of a youthful protagonist. And several of these games are explicitly branded towards students or ask you to adopt the mindset of a student. Bank of America's Financial Literacy Challenge, as I said, it takes notes from the game of life, where you're trying to direct your protagonist through several in-game time periods, and you're doing so as a college student who works part-time. And so part of the responsibilities that you have to balance are not just how much money you have and making sure to save your paycheck, but also, am I studying enough for school? Am I going to see my friends? Is this going to impact my academic performance or my quality of life score? Is this going to impact my current debt or my credit score? Voya's Retirement Planning Game Board, which is part of a partnership with the University of Texas, offers a more explicit retirement-focused experience where the game board tries to help current college students prepare for entering the workforce and build their knowledge about retirement and important skills like budgeting in preparation for graduation. T. Rowe Price's Money Confident Kids program is more of a guided course or workbook where students can complete each workbook, increasing the difficulty of the concepts and skills that they're learning while their protagonist, Nikki, who begins as a seventh grader, grows older. So by the time you might reach lessons on investing or more complicated topics, Nikki similarly will be aging up and tackling more difficult financial decisions, such as preparing for college and taking out student loans. Finally, National Credit Union's Hit the Road encourages players to guide a group of customizable friends and funky companions on a road trip across America. While they're engaging on this road trip, in addition to making sure they have enough fuel, have enough food, are paying their expenses, they're also trying to save for a long-term goal at the end of their trip. As I said before, one way to make it immersive for students is to use a youthful protagonist. Another way to do this is by leveraging the game style and tone to appeal to children, and then doubling those games with a challenge or partnership with an educational institution. We've already discussed Fidelity's Pancake Empire. Another example is both Bank of America's Literacy Challenge and Charles Schwab's stock market game feature contests for participating schools with real prize rewards. That includes money, sometimes that includes supplies or electronics that can be used within the classroom. Visa's Financial Football also once offered active contests that ended with individual prizes. However, those contests are no longer active. However, players can still access a leaderboard, incentivizing competition both on a lower level and then with a contest on a more national scale. In addition to the games, which are very cool, firms are also pursuing additional avenues to try and push for literacy and encourage retirement savers or participants of any age to begin building their aptitude. Principal partnered with Short Edition and the Center for Fiction to launch a national short story contest where participants could earn a cash prize or also be considered for publication within the Short Edition magazine. These short stories were supposed to be focused on financial success or financial hardship, allowing contest participants to explore what they understand about finance and what they value in having those skills. Financial Finesse also launched the NIL Long Game, which was a literacy certification program specifically made for student athletes, helping them to learn about the ins and outs of core financial basics while also adding in some unique content to athletes who might be looking to maximize their wealth building opportunities associated with the NIL. Another example is TIAA recently partnered with the artist Wyclef Jean to produce a song called Paper Right, which tries to encourage young listeners to be financially savvy, learn about saving, budgeting, and investing, and begin building their financial legacy early. New York Life recently, in the first quarter of 2024, partnered with Major League Baseball, U.S. Soccer, and Little League International to promote financial education to youth sports programs. So in a quick summary, what we're seeing here with financial literacy games are a handful of really exciting opportunities. One, for expanded engagement on mobile platforms and tablets. We're seeing a variety of tones, styles, and formats for games, offering a lot of customization options for firms as they build these initiatives. We're seeing these games be paired with additional literacy initiatives outside of the games themselves. We're also seeing games be uniquely suited to students, allowing them to really begin building literacy early and, in a long-term sense, invest in future retirement savers. And finally, we're also seeing happiness become more and more associated with financial wellness. So rather than wellness being simply maintaining your finances and getting closer to your retirement savings goal, wellness can also be, are you happy and content with how you're spending your money? And with that, I'm going to transition over to my colleague Eli, who will introduce you to some really exciting research about financial wellness assessments. Take it away, Eli.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Madeline. Before I get going to talk a little bit more about our findings related to our recent report on financial wellness assessments, I did just want to give a quick reminder, if you have any questions at any time related to Madeline's portion of the presentation or my portion of the presentation upcoming, feel free to input your questions in through the Q&A function in the chat. So Madeline just went over financial literacy games. Just as they function as a mechanism to improve education around financial wellness assessments are a mechanism that firms use to increase participant engagement and afford participants an opportunity to increase their retirement readiness, to address weakness areas and gaps in their financial planning, and to take action steps to improve. So before I get going related to our findings on a recent report, I just want to highlight financial wellness assessments in general. So they're once considered a value-add feature, a nice-to-have offering on platforms. These assessments have increasingly become table stakes for financial wellness providers and record keepers alike. So this pertinent industry tool, which was historically offered solely on financial wellness platforms, has been unveiled within record keeper sites. And the reason why this is happening more and more is because retirement firms, record keeper sites, are no longer positioning retirement in a vacuum or on an island. They are increasingly pushing that they need to have holistic financial planning mechanisms, and a financial wellness assessment is one way that firms are able to afford participants resources that they can address their entire financial situations. So these have, as I mentioned, historically been on financial wellness platforms. They are now increasingly on record keeper sites, but they feature a stark contrast between the style, length, as well as the actionability of the results themselves. So just as financial literacy games can drive engagement and increase financial retirement readiness, these assessments similarly function as an educational vehicle but of course in a more formal setting that can help participants identify improvement opportunities and provide them with an action plan to improve their standing and to give them resources on the spot that they can engage with on the site. Corporate Insight, in tandem with this report, recently conducted a remote user experience test to glean insight into participant financial wellness assessment preferences. We polled 8 different respondents through hour-long interviews and gave them real live sites to interact with across 3 different platforms. We had them complete the financial wellness assessment. We had them look into the action plan results and to give their feedback on what they liked, what they didn't like, and how they thought the assessments would engage them or lack thereof. So as Madeline mentioned with financial literacy games, one way that firms both drive engagement and also afford participants results is through scoring elements, through gamification. So integrating dynamic financial wellness scores within assessment flows and results can drive engagement both during and after taking an assessment. But we did find that firms must use caution to avoid nudging participants into picking answers that correlate with a higher score. Participants should be able to process these scoring systems and metrics intuitively and without confusion. So when they were presented with scores that they didn't understand, why was I being given this score? What answers are correlating with this specific score, is when a financial wellness assessment can cause confusion, can cause disengagement, and can cause participants to say, hey, I'm not sure what this is trying to tell me. I'm going to leave this experience altogether. We found that numeric scoring systems showed engagement potential as respondents who appreciate gamification or competition thought a numeric score would motivate them to ascend financial wellness levels. And while this is certainly true, these fell flat in application due to confusion around the scoring framework. Some firms generally give participants their financial wellness score as they go through this assessment. So they may gradually increase the score as participants answer various questions, as opposed to giving them the score at the end of the assessment. This in particular was very confusing to participants, as say they might have answered one question and been presented with a low score, say whether it be on a 10-point scale or whether it be on a 100-point scale. If they, after one question, had a score of 3 or had a score of 10, this was confusing. Why was I receiving a score that was so low when I just answered one question? In reality, these firms try to explain throughout the assessment process what answer correlates with a certain score, such as indicating if you have debt, or indicating that you have a lack of emergency savings, or the opposite, if you don't have much debt, or you have a lot of extra savings. But when given one step at a time, this led to confusion in the process. Firms that present scores at the end of the assessment and clearly explain the reasoning behind these scores tend to fare better in engaging participants. So firms such as Enrich and Merrill, which provide the score at the end of the assessment, avoided this score chasing while still allowing participants to tap into the benefits of the score. So participants may not have known that what they were answering directly correlated with the score, or at least because they couldn't see the score gradually change, they didn't feel like, hey, I'm going to answer this way so I get a better score, for example. Merrill stands out for providing a How We Determine Your Score PDF at the end of the assessment that explains the generalized framework for generating participant scores. Still, firms that are able to provide a very detailed, personalized, and specific explanation fare best when using these scores. We also found, interestingly, that participants want to answer in-depth personal finance questions in order to glean thorough, accurate results. But firms must keep delicate matters in mind in order to avoid disengaging participants. Our studies showed that respondents are not only open to answering personal finance questions, but they expected to do so in order to receive useful results. We found that study respondents generally associated the depth of the assessments to the quality of results, meaning that those that probed into participants' financial situations were more popular. This went against perhaps biases that we went into this study, that we thought that participants would be particularly hesitant to answer questions that really probed into the details of their financials, such as if they have great amounts of debt or if they are struggling with various aspects of financial literacy or financial planning. Some study respondents expressed a desire to input more specific answers than those available, which was also an interesting finding. We found that some questions that had very generalized inputs, such as only giving 2 or 3 or 4 answers when asking about how much emergency savings participants had on hand, the respondents in the study wanted to be able to give specific answers because they felt that if I'm only giving this generalized answer, how can the assessment properly generate personalized results specific to my situation? Several individuals said that ranges with just a few options, such as indicating emergency savings, were too broad. And so they wanted the narrow options to garner personalized results. And we found that firms are wary of driving users away with overly intrusive questions, can consider offering skip options rather than avoid these questions. So this is one way that while some participants may be enthusiastic to answer more personal questions, there may be a handful of participants that want to stay away from answering these questions that probe maybe a little bit more into the details of their financial situations, but they still want to complete the assessment. They still want to get results. So let's provide an option here that we can allow them to keep taking the assessment. They don't have to feel like they need to quit out. If they see a question they don't like, they can simply skip it. So our study suggests that most respondents would still answer the bulk of the questions, even if there was a skip option present. So whereas firms may be cautious in integrating this, thinking that participants may skip over pertinent or key questions, we found that as long as respondents knew that there was value in the results that they were getting, they would try to answer as many questions as they were comfortable with. And so integrating a skip option on some or all questions, such as Financial Finesse does, enables participants to move past prompts that generate concern without compromising trust. And also, one way to further drive this engagement is integrating positive feedback as participants answer questions about their financial situations, which is something that Empower and Merrill do, can keep participants engaged and ease concerns even as the firm probes into potential sore spots. So for example, Empower greets participants with positive feedback messaging, including that minimal debt will make improving one's financial life more attainable. And as you can see on the bottom right here, Merrill also does this, occasionally integrating positive question feedback as participants use radio buttons to input their responses. Another finding from our report is that firms must balance assessment length and depth to keep participants engaged while building their trust that results hold truth and value. So we found that there is a wide range in participant willingness to answer questions, to engage with these assessments. Some participants may be willing to spend a long period of time, such as 45 minutes even, to answer questions in order to receive personalized action items, whereas others may only want to allot 5 or 10 minutes. But universally, we found that participants feel that longer assessments, those that simply ask more questions, had more credibility. Participants raised a red flag when they finished an assessment with, say, only 5 or 10 questions, even if the action plan was detailed, even if it had seemingly personalized elements, they didn't establish credibility that those elements were really personal to their situation. So firms must find ways to balance this. They have to have assessments that are short enough and engaging enough that participants are going to complete them, but they also must have detailed enough assessments so that participants trust that the results hold value. Some firms in the coverage set, both within this study, but also within the larger record keeper and financial wellness platform coverage set, stand out for their ability to extract a larger amount of information by asking fewer questions. which may increase the chances that participants complete the assessment. Fidelity stands out for their 13-question assessment that is brief enough to keep participants engaged, but also is detailed enough so that action plan results hold value in the eyes of participants. The firm uniquely prompts participants to fill in blanks to complete sentences about their financial standing, often incorporating multiple fields per sentence. And so this allows the firm to glean more information in fewer steps. So participants may feel like they're only answering one question, which they technically are, but if they have to fill in 2 or 3 blanks, it is more information that the firm is able to pick up through this process. Enrich also stands out for its quiz-style assessment, which uses decision tree logic, which features detailed progress tracking that can potentially keep participants engaged throughout a somewhat lengthy assessment. As you might be able to see on the bottom there on the left-hand side, Enrich embeds this progress meter, which tells participants exactly where they are within the assessment and also provides a time estimate. So even if a participant is feeling a little bit burnt out as they are completing this assessment, if they can see, I only have 5 minutes left, I only have 2 sections left, they might just stay engaged throughout the entire assessment and finish it up. Whereas if there's no indicator at all, a participant who has had enough of taking the assessment may exit the experience altogether. And I've been talking a lot about the assessment itself, but the other part of the assessments is, of course, the results themselves. These is where firms are able to recommend resources, for instance, recommend specific actions that participants take both to improve their financial wellness, their financial standing, and also simply engage more with the firm and resources on the site. So we found that firms that provide personalized, actionable, and realistic financial wellness assessment results best position participants to succeed and increase the likelihood they will use site tools and resources. As evidenced during our study, respondents appreciated results that were both actionable and easily navigable upon completion. This was valued above all else. So firms that simply recommended educational resources that gave surface level action items, such as look at this article, look at this video, did not drive the engagement and did not provide actionable next steps for participants. Participants also valued results that were immediate when they completed the assessment. And this makes sense naturally. If participants cannot find results or they have to take multiple steps to find the results, not only may they not be able to do so at all, they may become frustrated, become disengaged, and exit the experience. So it's a best practice to position results immediately following the assessment so participants not only see them right then and there, but can also take the actionable steps to engage with site resources. Results that are difficult to locate, as I mentioned, not only spur frustration, but they will increase the odds of a disconnect between assessment questions and results. Most firms in this report that we published provide personalized action items, but the recommendations vary in feasibility and measurability. Results that are not measurable, that do not provide actionable next steps, often disengage participants as they navigate from the assessment to that results section. Some firms value links to educational content over recommended behaviors. We found that the latter was best in increasing engagement and giving participants actionable steps that they can take. Financial finesse resonated with respondents for providing actionable results along with a visual representation that you can see here on the right-hand side. This is the home page, and they have an action plan embedded in the top right, which participants can click on to launch the entire action plan that gives next step recommendations. There's also an achievement section there, which correlates to the financial wellness assessment, where they are placed in a specific level based on behaviors that they indicated. And the firm clearly spells out what milestones have been completed and which milestones have yet to be completed in their financial journey. T. Rowe Price's action plan, which I overviewed a little bit earlier, resonated with study respondents for the actionability of results, along with the ability to visualize the progress of actions, such as providing large check marks for steps that had been completed and offering progress bars for each of the 3 recommended areas. So respondents especially appreciated how goals were broken up into discrete steps and featured progress tracking. So the firm gives 3 different categories of recommendations and indicates exactly where on that scale from fair, good, and great the participant falls upon completing the assessment. And respondents especially resonated with this, where they could see exactly where they fell in that sphere between each separate recommendation. Merrill also stands out for its actionable results, encouraging participants to take tangible steps toward improving their financial wellness, such as setting up a budget through the firm's linked worksheet or setting aside money for unexpected expenses, as you can see on the right hand here. So in all, we published the results of this study within this report 2 months ago, and also overviewed all the different assessments and results of the entire coverage set. And so these are just a little bit of an insight into the summary findings that we found through this report. So I'm going to overview some key takeaways, and then we'll get into question and answer. And like I said a little bit earlier, feel free at any time to put in any questions you like into that function. So hopefully you took away today from Madeline's portion of the presentation as well as mine. The low levels of financial literacy can negatively impact participants' confidence levels and engagement with the participant site. Games offer a unique strategy to engage players of all age levels and introduce them to the basics of financial literacy. As firms expand their financial wellness offerings, the definition of wellness, as Madeline overviewed earlier, is also expanding to incorporate personal satisfaction. Financial wellness assessments are an increasingly popular tool to provide personalized content recommendations for participants and function as a mechanism to support their savings goals. And these assessments, as I mentioned, which are historically offered within financial wellness platforms, have become a table stakes offering for record keepers and financial wellness providers alike, but they feature a multitude of format differences. According to our study, respondents prefer in-depth assessments that generate actionable, immediate results rather than those with surface-level recommendations. They are willing to answer a little bit more in order to get a little bit out of the assessment, as long as they understand that the assessment is generating those personalized results. So now we'll get into Q&A. Like I said, please feel free at any time to flag questions. I do see a question in the chat, which I'll get started off with. It's asking about which financial wellness formats are most popular. And so I can give a little insight into how firms go about this process. Most firms, we found, use a quiz-style approach. So a typical quiz that you would be taking, you answer one question. It might be multiple choice. It might give you the option to input multiple answers. And so participants would go about each one of those questions in that quiz-style format in order to formulate those personalized results. Another format, which is a little bit less popular, but we do see firms employing, is a chat-style format. So firms might use a virtual chat format in order to hopefully engage participants a bit more as they complete the assessment. So they're not just presenting information within a typical quiz that maybe might lose some participants in that process. They're actually going back and forth with a virtual assistant to create more of a conversational tone as they're going through this assessment. So they might say one answer, and before asking the next question, the assistant through that chat format will give them some feedback related to their answer. And then they'll be asked the next question where they can indicate a variety of responses. So it's another way that firms are trying to engage participants to keep them engaged to that finish line so they can get their results.
All right.
And Madeline, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to hop in here because I do see a question about game formats and what other offerings we see in the industry. So as I said before, in some of our survey results we have on gamification, strategy games and casual games like Candy Crush are very popular across respondents in general when it comes to what type of games they like, even separate of financial services. Within the coverage set and our financial literacy games, strategy games such as Game of Life, where you are role playing as either a pre designed protagonist or placing yourself into the role of your own protagonist, and then going forward and answering a series of questions over the course of a set period of time within the game, where every choice, every decision will have a tangible and visible impact on one of several measurable variables, such as your credit score or your savings or your debt. Those are highly popular games, and in part because it's very easy to relay basic financial concepts about investing and saving and budgeting. We're also seeing Jeopardy and trivia style questions being very popular with both the financial football game. And we're also seeing that some games like Stacks and Charles Schwab's stock market game sort of instead leverage a sandbox style game where you can play around with a digital and fake set of not real money, and really experiment with how to invest and how to build your portfolio, and giving players that freedom of trial and error without having to worry about any real repercussions with their own finances.
Thank you, Madeline. I do see a question in the chat, which is asking about, are participants worried about their employers seeing their answers? And does the willingness to answer detailed questions apply to all types of people? So this is a great question. For the first part of the question, I can say that yes, participants are worried about employers seeing their answers. This is part of what I alluded to, that some participants are more willing to answer personal questions, that might ask about debt sources, that might ask about areas of financial stress and concern, that might ask about, what amount of savings do they have on hand. Some are willing to do that, some are less willing to do that. But one way that firms are going about this is that if participants understand, and firms can stress to the participants that everything is confidential. Their information isn't being sold to third parties. This is not information that is readily available to anyone else except the participant and this experience within the site. The participants are going to be a little bit more willing to engage with these assessments. Of course, there's always going to be a subset of people that are concerned no matter what they are told. But as long as participants understand that these are confidential experiences, that this is not a way that the firm is selling their data, for example, that they are going to be more willing to engage with these assessments. And for the other part of the question, I can say that pretty much all respondents that we found in our study, would be willing to answer these questions no matter what. So they are willing to engage as long as they know that the answers are going to yield actionable results. I'll pass it back to Matt.
All right, thank you, Eli. I'm seeing a great question about what industries respond best or worst to gamification. So first, I don't want to take a cheap shot here, but the great thing and the really cool thing about gamification is that it has a lot of versatility in how you can apply it and how creative you can be. And so I'm going to interpret this question as rather how industries, how well they're suited to applying gamification to their products, as opposed to what participants in what industries like gamification best. So the first part of that is that for gamification, it doesn't have to mean building an entire game like Fidelity's Pancake Empire. It can mean leveraging elements of gamification, like offering rewards for completing activities, leveraging daily streaks or daily rewards for login, like the Money World app uses, and also gamification can mean a little bit of engagement tactics. So we see that also in financial wellness assessments. Sometimes completing your assessment within the participant site can reward you with experience points or points that you can use to then enroll in a sweepstakes to try and earn a prize. And so I think gamification has a lot of promise to be applied widely in a variety of industries, because it doesn't just mean can we build a virtual world with a fun set of rules. It can mean can we offer a tangible reward to get a participant to participate in a new product? Can we offer someone points? Can we offer them an experience level? Can we offer them an experience badge or a fun banner to put on your home screen to get them to look at a new podcast or register for a webinar or set up their beneficiary? So it's really focused on the reward and engagement relationship when we discuss gamification. That's not the only element of gamification, but I do tend to think it's the most popular with participants, and it's the one that perhaps offers a really wide versatility in how we can apply it across industries. I'll hand it back to you, Eli.
Thank you. We do have a question about the deck itself. Yes, we will be sharing these slides after the call, as well as a recording of the presentation. So everyone attending this call will get those materials. We also have a question related to financial wellness assessments. How do financial wellness assessments differ across record keeper and financial wellness platforms, and how has the space been evolving? So this is a good question. I addressed a little bit of this earlier on, but financial wellness assessments more historically were offered through financial wellness platforms. And this is intuitive, because a lot of what financial wellness platforms will do is they will prompt participants to take these assessments right when they first register and first log into the site. And this differs from record keepers, whereas financial wellness platforms and providers will use these assessments to potentially generate resources across the entire site. So I showed you a little bit of Financial Finesse's site. The assessment kind of generates a wide array of resources. So you have the action plan, you also have your score, and you have achievements. What have you achieved, which you indicated during the assessment? What are you working towards and will achieve over time? So this is a key difference in that the purpose of the assessment and what does it serve, whereas the record keeper site, it's more of a secondary resource. It's more of a potentially an educational resource that participants can engage with, but that's not the purpose of the site. They're probably more likely going into the site to check their account balance than they are to engage with the financial wellness assessment. But as I mentioned, there has been a push in recent years for these sites to offer holistic planning resources. So they're not just positioning retirement on an island. You can log into the site to check your account balance, to change your contribution rate. These are probably core features of the site, but it's not the only features that you can do on the site, because they're recognizing that retirement planning is important, but it's not the only way to improve your financial standing and to save for the future. It is just one way. And so financial wellness assessments on record keeper sites, for that reason, they might be shorter. They're not always shorter, but they might be more little snapshots into participant situations in order to generate some recommended resources, as opposed to an informing an entire site experience. So hopefully that answers that question.
Okay, I'm going to jump here and answer one last question with our last handful of minutes, which is, why are firms really investing resources into literacy games, and what's the potential upside? So one really great answer for that is marketing. As we saw with Fidelity, which offers 3 different financial games on some really popular platforms like Roblox. This not only offers a chance for firms to reach a very wide pre-established audience, especially if a firm is releasing a game on a platform that is already established. It's also offering the opportunity to really expand branding and marketing initiatives across social media channels. So last time I think I checked Fidelity's social media site, they had a presence on almost every social media platform, in addition to a few really unique platforms like Roblox or Reddit. And so it offers a firm a chance to really get some name brand recognition and expand outward. I'll also add that while the presentation didn't go into this, and our report does, is that in Fidelity's Pancake Empire game, when you're in that 3D world, there are questions posed to the player that both gauge their understanding of the concepts they're learning, and also questions that ask them if they recognize that this is a Fidelity product. One example, I think, is which firm created this game? And Fidelity is one of several answers. And so, while you might think, okay, is it important to ensure that younger children or younger players know about Fidelity? It kind of is a long-term investment paying it forward too. Schools will then know about it. Parents will then know about it. And by partnering with initiatives, it's really encouraging players of all age levels to be familiar with their finances, and perhaps when it comes time to open a bank account, open their first investing account, or open their own retirement account, that name brand firm might be the first one they think of. And so it looks like we just have a minute or so left. And so I do quickly want to reiterate that, as Eli said, everyone will be getting a copy of this deck as well as a recording of the presentation. Here you can find links to the full report at the very end of the deck, along with a little blurb about each report. You can also find our contact information. And so please feel free, if you have follow-up questions or logistical issues accessing the recording or the deck, feel free to reach out to our team, or feel free to reach out to the representative who you may have communicated with before. We're happy to answer any outstanding questions that you may have. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions, and so I think that will be all today. I'm going to give a really big thank you to everyone who came in to attend today. We really appreciate your time, and I hope that you stay informed and up to date on any future events that ZI will be hosting. I know we have a few really great events coming up in the next few months.